Hi everyone, welcome back to another art session with me. This is Marcy at Prints and Paints. It's good to see you again. So, I thought that we would do another how-to video. I like to build this playlist for beginners especially. I know that it can be very frustrating and very trying when you're trying to figure out how to do painting in general, but also doing dotting. So I looked on the internet and I really didn't find a particular type of video that was geared towards making monochromatic paints. I saw some tutorials on it. I didn't see, and I've also made a video on paint consistencies, which you can check up in the card right now. But I haven't seen anything yet that really had creating different tints from just one particular color. I like to do this technique sometimes when I'm doing a series of walking dots where there's multiple layers of them. If you know and if you're familiar with it, walking dots are this type of style where you usually do a large dot in the center and then you also have a small one and you gradually get smaller and work your way out. I consider this called walking your dots. So when I refer to my terminology of it, that's what I mean. And sometimes I like to do projects where it's all monochromatic. So I like to choose one particular color. In this video, I'm going to be using the Deco Art Americanas, and I'm using the color Thicket. Really, this is just for the next project that's coming up for me. So I figured I would also make a video on how to make the tints. So this one in particular is I've started with a series of the color, and I want to show you because I have to continue to make a little bit more, and so I figured I would show you how to do it, guys. This one in particular, what I did do was, because it's a darker tone, I start with the original usually for my walking dots, and then I go and I start to get like a little lighter as I go up. All right, really this only consists of 2-3 types of ingredients. You have your base paint that you're going to use, which is your value, it's your color, and then you want your tint. For this particular one, I'm going from dark to light. I'm not going to go from dark to darker. I can do that, and in that case I would use black, but in this case I'm going to be using white. I only have a little bit left of this particular white. This is warm white. It is on the slightly bit of a warm tone. It's really not that big of a difference. But I also have this laying around. It's my Apple Barrel Snow White color. So I'm just going to use this one because it's closest to a pure white color. And I don't really use these brands anymore to dot. So I'm going to just use it to mix my paints. Why waste it, right? And then I'm also going to use the Liquitex pouring medium. I like using this in particular because it acts as a binder and it will make my paint consistency nice. It'll give me nice plump dots when I need them. So I personally like to use this one. You can use the matte fluid medium. Just keep in mind that fluid medium is technically for when you're doing a lot of pouring with your acrylics. You do that pouring art. That can be kind of a issue. So, you know, this one, it can make your paints a little bit transparent. So just keep that in mind if you decide to use this one. I don't recommend using water for this particular project because we are mixing an abundance of large paint. You want something that's going to act as a binder. So I got pouring medium, I have my color, and I have my white. That's all I'm going to need. I like to use these little paint tins, like these little buckets, only because they do keep the paint fresh in these. If I was to do it in, say, like a tray, it would dry out by tomorrow. So there's no way of keeping it nice and airtight. You need it to be airtight. So I do recommend something like this, or if you have little squares or something that you found at the dollar store is fine, as long as it can stay airtight. I'm also going to use either a few things. I can use this little, it's like a putty knife almost. I use it to mix my oil paints, but I do it for acrylics as well. You can also just use a small dotting tool to mix, or these are great too, the ones that have like the silicone tip to them. These are nice to clean up too, and it comes off fairly easy on the tip. So you want to have something like that. And then I'm also just going to do this real quick. So I had this design that I came up with. I actually have this on my Etsy available. It's just in a small PDF and it's very cheap. I think I'm only charging $1 or $2 to download the sheet, and the sheet will come looking like this. And it's a really cool design. This is going to be for my next project, and my idea came from this because each of these swooshes here I wanted to do a different shade. So I wanted to start with a darker tone and work my way up to at least here. So I needed a different shade of the same color. I'd say let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different shades. So we can practice just so you can get an idea. I can cut one of these out and I'll show you how we do that. But let's get mixing first. So what I did here in these in particular was that if I can turn it sideways without it getting all over, I want to say, I'd say a quarter way up in this one. Now this is a 5mm like paint bucket thing. If you have 3, which is like slightly smaller, I think that's what they usually sell in the stores, then, you know, just base it on the ratio of this size that you have. This is about a 5mm. I got these at Hobby Lobby, I believe. So I did a quarter way up of my thicket color. I did that in each one. Now I only did that for this particular thing because I was doing a darker shade. I was working my way up. Now that I'm going, like, I'm going to keep going from the lighter perspective. I'm going to add white first and then add some thicket to it. Normally that's how you would do it. You would use white as your base, and then you would gradually add more and more of your color to your base paint, and that's how you make your tints. Normally you do that if you're just painting, but because we do dotting and we do need a nice amount to do, you know, all the way around our mandala, we need to make sure that we have enough mixed. And I think that was my problem I was running into, was finding somebody who actually mixed the paints like this to show you. I've seen a lot of time lapses, I've seen a lot of videos that were already done and ready to go, but nobody really showed you how to do it. So I thought I'd make this video for you guys. So like I said, this one in particular, I filled the paint tins about a quarter way up with my thicket, and then really all I did was I just kept dropping in some white and I worked my way up. So I start here, and then this one got a little lighter, and then I added more white, and I kept going and I added, and you can see in this one how the gradient has begun, right? But I still need to keep going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and I also have to keep in mind I'm adding my pouring medium too, and that's why I only did a quarter of the paint, because technically half of the container should be paint and half should be pouring medium to get your right ratios of the consistency you need. At least for a 5mm, that's, you know, it's half and half. That's 1 part paint and 1 part pouring medium. So for this one, I'm really just going to do, I'd say a quarter of white, all right? And then I'm going to drop in a few drops of my thicket, like so. And then I'm going to mix this one together just to see where I'm at, because I need it light. I don't want it dark, so I got to be careful how much thicket paint I put in. Now you can already see, I can see with my eye that this one got significantly lighter than here, and that's great. That's what I want. I just want to make sure it's not too light, it has to kind of, I don't know, it has to be this really nice gradient. And what I mean by gradient is like, it's subtle. It's very subtle in the colors. So you go from the dark to a little bit lighter, to a little bit lighter, to a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, and you keep going with that. And that is how you would, you know, get this nice gradient of color here. So I think I'm going to need a little bit more thicket. And when I squeeze this in, I'm literally just doing like a little droplet. I want to show you. See, it's just a little droplet. It's not much at all, because you see when you start to mix it, it does significantly change in your hue that you have here. So that looks pretty good, I'd say. Now what I want to do is I'm going to add some pouring medium to this as well. So the pouring medium, I'm going to try to fill just enough below the brim, and carefully I'm going to mix this. Just like that. That looks great. And so now my consistency is, you know, like a thin yogurt base, I'd say. That's really what you want out of this one. Honestly, it actually looks a little bit lighter than I anticipated. So I think I'm even going to add a little bit more thicket to this one. And I still have some room here, so I'm not worried about it. Now I'm going to do the white in this one as well. And I'm going to do a quarter of white, because I want to make sure I have enough in each of these. I want it to be filled, because if I have to mix it again, I'm going to be in trouble, because I might not get it the second time around. That looks good, so I'm going to do that. Now I said I wanted to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 colors. So if I count this one as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11. So there's my 11 colors. So this one I'll do white as well. And like I said, I'm only going about, I'd say, a quarter to a halfway up. I'd say a little, like a third way up. All right. So I'm gonna add one more drop. Now this is how you mix. It can take a few times to figure out the right consistency that you need, and you just have to stay patient with yourself and figure out, okay, you know, this is how I'm gonna get these colors. But once you have them, what's good about these paint pots is that you can keep the colors in here until you don't need them anymore. I think that's like the best thing about it. So these last ones, I want it very faint. I almost wanted just a hint of this greenish color. So if I find that it's a little too dark, I'm going to add more white to it. And that's why I also only do about a quarter of the paint first, because one, my pouring medium is going to thin it out significantly. It's almost going to add like another half a cup to my paint. And then two is, you know, if I have to mix more white or dark, I have the room to do it. So just keep that in mind too when you're mixing your paints. Now you can also do this like on a glass or plastic tray, and then use like your putty knife to mix it somewhere on a flat surface. Some people love to do it that way too. I just find that since I'm using these pots, it's just best to mix them in there as is, because then I'm not transferring the paint and wasting paint, you know. So let's see how we are. So let's see where we're at here. So all I really did was a few drops of the thicket paint in each one. And you can see that, I can see at least, that I'd say this one and this one are very close. I almost feel like this one is a little darker than this one. So if that's the case, I can also just take some of this and put it in here real quick just to make it a little darker. And that's what's best about doing this, is that you don't have to go, you know, and get more paint and put it in there. Just scoop from the darker side. Really, that's all you're trying to do, is just gradually build up. So that looks good. I might do a little bit white in here. Excuse me. And so when I squeeze out, I'm only doing like little droplets of it. I'm not doing a lot. When you start doing too much, then you find that it's easier to add than to try to take away. So I like that. I'm going to add a little to here because I don't have much in this one. Add a little white to this one because I need a little bit more paint. So again, if you notice, like for this one, I just, like I said, I did the white, and I did the white first, and then I added the thicket. Now, building up from darker to lighter, I did the opposite. So I did a little bit of the thicket, and I started to add white to it. And once you start getting the knack of mixing your paints like this, you'll better understand how they should look, especially when you're lining them up next to each other. I do recommend getting yourself some good lights too. I use these daylight. Sometimes they're fluorescent too. I can change the colors of them, and it can, I'm going to show you real quick just so you understand what I mean. Let's see. So see how it turned yellow? That is like a iridescent. That's like a regular light bulb in a house. And it could change the colors of your paints when you're mixing them significantly. It gives them yellow hue. And then you're not understanding, you know, the variation. So remember, lighting is key. This is also fluorescent. It has a more blue hue to it. Do you see? And then I have my daylight back. So lights are very important too when you're mixing your paints. Don't forget that if you're at home. It can be kind of, you know, hard to do. So now I'm just going to add my fluid, or my medium, my pouring medium. I'm happy with the colors that I have right now, so I'm going to add my medium. I only do the medium when I'm satisfied with my colors, because it will, like I said, it's going to grow your paint significantly. The paint, you only need about a half of this container, really. So, you know, and it's good to learn this because, you know, paints can get expensive. So it can be, it could get really, you know, it could break your bank if you're not careful and you're not mixing them right. You have to keep buying paints. Oh, let's see how they all look together now. So I'd say that's a nice gradient. I do have a little bit of a jump between, let me open this one so you can see. I do have a bit of a jump here. You notice from here to here, but it's not terrible. In fact, this one I could probably add a little bit of white too. And you notice how all I did was stick my mixer in there because it had white on it already. So I can mix it around and make it a little bit lighter. I think it looks good though. So that's how you do that, guys. It's very, very simple. It just takes a lot of patience and a lot of time and the right things you need. So, you know, it can get really fun to do this kind of project. Monochromatics can look really beautiful on a mandala, and, you know, they can really make things like pop really nicely. So let me show you real quick. I don't want to use all my paint up because I am going to use this for my project. I'm going to put my mixer down real quick. I'm just going to get some scissors and cut one of these out. I like this pattern a lot, and I was playing around on my computer with it. So, like I said, I have these available, and what you could do with these is, like I said, you can just print it out on your printer. I have it sized to printer paper. And I have large ones and I have small ones, just for like the purpose of mandalas, depending on the size that you have. And all you can do is you can either like put on a light board and trace the back here and then transfer it that way, or you can get transfer paper. They sell graphite paper, and you put that underneath first and then you put this over it and then you just sketch out that area and then it'll show up. I don't know if making a stencil out of this would be ideal because it's a lot of cutting out. This is also good for just practicing. So that's what I really like about this one, is that I can get this like this now, and I'll get these colors here real quick, and I'll just get myself a dotting tool. I'm going to go with my blue one. I think this is a size 3 for those tiny ones. So like the first color down this base here, I'm going to do the thicket out of the bottle. But then this one right here I'll start with. And it's just really like practicing like swooshes too. It helps you understand that. So I'll try to zoom in like this. And so like on either side I can do a swoosh and go up like this. And I like doing these because then it makes me see what my design's going to look like too, right? Paper towel. Here we go. Okay, so I got that color, and then I can do the next one. Sometimes these could be stubborn and not open right. So then I have my next color. And if you can see, like, it is very, very slight indifference. It's there, but it's very slight. And that is what you want to get when you're doing tinting with colors. You want them to be just slightly off. See? It's very hard to see in this light, I apologize, but it's very slight. So I would have an even darker tone here, and I would keep going with this. So I'll keep going just to show you guys. I have to zoom back in. There we go. Ah. So what's the next color I did? 1, 2, 3. So here's my next color. And then this way too. This is helpful. So if I know, so they're too close together in color, I need to add a little bit of this or that. Then I know too, before I even start my project, you know, because how many times have we done something to where we thought the colors were going to look great, or we did this or we did that, and then realized like it was a big old mess and it just didn't work, you know, and then you have to scrap it, or you have to try to remove all the paint. It happens a lot. So there we go. Clean this off. I have to keep cleaning the color off because I'm changing colors. Alright, so here's coming up on my new colors, so let's see how they look. Now see, these are a little bit close together, but I think they're gonna be fine. I think you won't even notice, really. So here's my next jump. This is the big jump that I'm worried about, but let's see. I think it actually looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks pretty good. It's light, but it's a nice separation. So let's close these. I need to close these up because if you keep them open too, keep that in mind that they can start to potentially dry. I started to mix a little there, so I have to do this when they dry. But anyway, this is like my next project of what I'm doing and how I'm going to do it, and I really just wanted to quickly show you guys what cool designs you can make with just using one color. It's one color and it's abundance of tints of that color. You can like significantly save a lot of money too because you're only using one color. The only thing that you might want to invest in is paint pots, which These, gosh, they're so cheap. They're not expensive at all. And so see, and so now what I do here, if when I stop here, I can start going back in the color and go backwards. And then I have this gorgeous design. And that's how we do that. So that is how you mix paints. That's how they would look if they're monochromatic. And it's super helpful to know how to achieve that. And even so, if I wanted to go even on the darker spectrum, if I wanted to take this and even go really dark with it, I would just add black. And that is the difference between, that's what shades are, and that's monochromatic. Now, if I wanted different hues of it, I would do the same concept like this, but I would do it with white and black, and it's called a grayscale. So grayscales are black on one end and white on the other, and in the middle is called middle gray. It can be kind of hard to achieve this method, especially if you're not familiar with the arts and understanding painting and color theory. But once you get those colors down, if you make them in pots like this, you can take some of that and then you mix it with your thicket, and that becomes a hue. So now you're getting like a gray thicket color. It's like a blue-gray kind of color, and it can get really fun. You can, the possibilities are endless when you start mixing, you know, hues with your colors. So I just wanted to quickly show you guys this, though. I don't know how long this video is now. It's going on almost 30 minutes, so I have to stop. That was my how-tos, though, and it's really helpful and informative. I hope you try it out. Let me know if you have trouble. I will always be here. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative, and happy dotting, and take care. Bye, guys.